Alonzo Menifield versus William Knight. This was, I think, they said the third time they were trying to get this fight to happen, so they got it. Uh, I, along with I would assume a bunch of people, I would assume yourself too, were really looking forward to this fight because, as you can tell by just looking at them, they're gigantic.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't check any of the odds for this week. I would assume the over under was probably set at 1.5.
it
I'd be
was.
surprised if it was 2.5,
It was.
which would have made sense. These guys again, both are pretty massive. Although Menifield's last fight, he went decision against Ed Herman, um, and then he went decision a couple fights before that against Devin Clark. And but everything else is finishes for him. So for Menifield, 11 wins, 10 are by finishes. But I think Knight, conversely, actually, I think Knight has gone to decision. Let me double check. Knight, nope, sorry. Knight, 11 wins, 9 knockouts. So you wouldn't necessarily expect this to go decision. And I remember, again, one of those tweets that they show as the fight's happening or as the fight's starting. Someone put, there's no way this is going to go 3 rounds. And of course, it goes 3 rounds. But given that, like you were saying right before we started recording, kind of sloppy.
Very
Then
sloppy. I
the third
mean,
round was just a hug fest.
as far as sloppiness goes, I think most of that was from Knight. He has no like technicality to him. It's literally just let me load it up and unleash. And I think with Menefield being matched up against him, he realized that and he's like, you know what? I'm not even gonna try to take damage from this guy. Let me lock him up. Because have you seen William Knight's upper body? It's
It's terrifying.
terrifying, dude. He looks
Like
like he's a heavyweight.
when he had Benefield in like that quasi guillotine thing,
I
like I
thought he
don't
was
think he was
dead.
even pressing. I don't think he even was like doing anything. His arm was like over here, like up here. It was like that big.
Dude, he's so massive. He couldn't get the lock on Menefield. Like, let that sink into your head. This guy's arms
Was
so
that is
freaking.
that what the issue was?
He couldn't close his arms around because of how freaking huge they were. We're watching, going like, Jesus, dude, this is insane. And like, I mean, if he's not juicing, that is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling, man. How do you get that big? But Jesus.
Yeah,
So sorry. Let me rewind the tape. So I think a lot of the sloppiness was from Knight, and Menefield was just doing whatever he could do not to get hit with one of those punches that would have probably put him on like a freaking 2-year leave from the UFC. You know, and yeah, this guy needs to clean up his act a little bit. I like watching him fight, but I want him to be a little bit more technical because there's a lot of potential here as far as, being able to move up the division. I think if you can get a little bit more cleaner, get a little bit more technical. Cardio doesn't seem to be that big of an issue for these guys,
they did
clearly.
need some work, both for both of these guys. They did something to improve. Menefield looked better with it in his last fight because he went to distance with Herman. But I do think for sure both men can use some work on there. Which again, for a lot of light heavyweights, you can typically say that. Especially like they're not fat light heavyweights by any
No,
means.
not at all.
Like their mass is so much that you can understand them getting tired more easily. So that's really the lone one of the things I would say from both of those guys is for sure cardio. Even though this went the distance, that last round it was just Menefield pinning Knight against the fence. Can you actually pull up the round 3 numbers? Because I'm curious if either of those guys got double digit strikes landed.
Again, though, I'm just gonna repeat myself here. I don't think that was because he was tired as much as it was because he recognized that if he didn't do that, he might have ended up getting killed in the ring, dude.
Well, that ended up costing him the fight though, because
Yes.
it was 1-1 entering. Now, honestly, I was surprised by the decision of Knight winning.
Yeah, so was I. I didn't think
So
that
what is that? 8-13.
8 to 19 in round 3.
19 is.
Blue was. I'm so sorry, guys. Give
I
me a
think that
second.
was.
Blue
It
was
wasn't.
Knight.
Well, then on the surface, that I guess kind of makes more sense. I honestly didn't really see anything. Like I just stopped looking at the screen. I'm like, oh, he's still on the fence. All right. And I don't know why they weren't splitting him up.
Well, see, now
Get
you
him
got
to
me
work.
confused too, because initially I thought Menefield took that fight as well,
So did
but
I.
looking at the numbers. But then again, if you count control, right?
Well, the thing is, again, with the control, it's like, are you doing anything with it? Especially when it's on the fence, you're not even on the ground controlling. He just had him pushed up against the fence, uh, and that's kind of why I think that worked against them. I don't know. Maybe you could have made a case for a draw, but again, I maybe because I was just getting so like bored of just seeing them against the fence, I would like look away. Maybe some stuff happened during that because I would not have guessed there was an 11 strike discrepancy. Unless it's kind of like one of those like as he's against the fence, he's just kind of hitting him in the head, like those like whatever ones. Uh,
It's
so
interesting. I mean,
I was kind of surprised by that decision.
yeah, and well, and you had a 29-28, and they all scored it the exact same too. So
Looks like the second round was given to Minifield.
yeah, I mean, the first was clearly Knights. That there's at least in my mind. So yeah, for me, it came down to the second and third as well. But I didn't. Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't think Knight did apparently what he did in the third. I didn't see any of that. So it's kind of interesting.
For both men, I don't think this was a good performance.
No,
I
no,
don't
not at all.
think like some of the other fighters we've talked about today, and just in general, we talk about how we end up saying like, oh, the trajectory is looking like this or like this. I don't think anything changed for either of these guys. I mean, especially again when you look at they tried to book this 3 times, they finally get it booked. I don't know what the hiccups were the first 2 times, but you finally get it booked. And I know the expectation of everyone was someone's going to go into possibly a coma, and then you guys come and do what you did. It's pretty disappointing, not just as fans, but just looking at it as probably I would assume for the UFC side, I can't imagine they're overly thrilled with the outcome of this fight. And I'm not saying it had to have been a knockout. It could have still gone decision and been a great fight, but it wasn't. Especially when you kind of like look, the first 2 rounds are fine. It wasn't like living up to what I was hoping it to be, but it wasn't also like complete ass. But that third round just completely put those first 2 rounds down the toilet for me. I was like, dude, come on, man. We were all so amped. And it sucks. It absolutely sucks when it is one of those fights where you're like, dude, 99% chance someone's getting finished, and then it goes decision. You're like, damn it. I was hoping something was going to happen here. And again, not one of those fruitful decisions either.
For
So
sure.
I don't know what they do with both of them. I kind of don't care because I'm still kind of bitter over. It's still only like 12 hours removed, so I'm still kind of bitter that they were. It was kind of an underwhelming performance. So I don't really care what they do.
Wow, it's very cold blooded of you.
Yeah, neither were ranked coming in. Neither should be ranked afterwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll have this to say for Menifield. We've seen him fight a couple times now. Each time I've seen him fight, I've always picked him. I put money on the guy. I think he has a lot of potential. It's just clean up your act, man. It's one of those things where you gotta tighten up what you're doing. I feel like a lot of times, especially when you start getting in a light heavy and heavyweight, they just rely on that power that they have. Which I can say for sure on Knight's end, but I think Menifield has potential to have a little bit more fight IQ if he hits the books, thinks about what he's doing, how he can do better in terms of technicality. I mean, I think he maybe not title, but I think he can get up there.
So for Menifield, this is the last thing I have to add on this. I don't really have much more on Knight. For Menifield, he was 9-0. He won on the Contender Series very quickly. Started 3-0 in the UFC. Then he dropped 2 in a row. He lost to Devin Clark, which I think was a surprise to like everyone. I think I had Menifield on that one. Then he gets knocked out by OSP Oven St. Preux. Then he comes back and wins against Fabio Sharon, submits him, which is you lost 2 in a row. You want to see a bounce back. And then he beats Ed Herman. And this was a very different type of fight for what we've seen from Menifield. It went decision, but he was very he had that technical aspect of him during that fight, which was completely different. It wasn't just completely reliant on his brute force. He was much more strategic and smart. And then yesterday's fight against Knight, like not all of it went out the window, but that complete performance, I would say, that he had against Ed Herman did not translate over to this fight, which is unfortunate because after I saw him against Ed Herman, I was like, okay, after that 2 fight losses in a row, 2 wins in a row now. I think maybe he's figured something out. And then this is a setback now. How he looks after this, we'll know if it was a big setback or a small setback. But I I'm more disappointed in Menifield, honestly, than I am in Knight, just because I think
Yeah.
I had, like you were already saying, I was seeing a little bit more in Menifield than I was in Knight. But now, like, I don't think any more or less of either of them, frankly. I'm just like, all right, you guys are both the same.
Indifferent. Yeah.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts for you on these two?
Nah.
Okay, thanks.